I am about to tell you the tale of an indie game I recently played that has the deepest design inspirations I've ever seen, especially in an indie game. So I found it because on a whim I was going through the Steam store looking at indie games I had never heard of. Of course, the vast majority of them sucked miserably, but I found one designed with two-player co-op in mind. One whose main gameplay mechanic has never been done before as far as I'm aware, and one which has a very stylish pixel art style to it. But what I didn't know while going into it is that this game has the deepest lore and deepest design choices of any indie game I have ever seen, and it's even deeper than many AAA games. This game was Red Rope, Don't Fall Behind. Also, hardcore spoilers, as in, literally, I'm going to be spoiling absolutely everything. I do highly recommend this game, though. I'll put a link in the description. And no, this isn't sponsored in any way. This is a pure passion project because, man, this game's deep. So right away I got the immediate reference. In Chinese mythology there's a tale, the String of Red Fate, which states that when you are born, an invisible red string connects you to your soulmate, and as you both live out your lives, the string tightens and pulls you closer together, as you are destined to be together. And there is a lot of anime and manga which references this tale, so much so that many people believe that this tale originated from Japan, and while it is still very popular in Japan today, it originated in China. Some games have even referenced it from time to time, even Pokemon with its Destiny Knot item. It's a red string that is called the Destiny Knot after all, and it causes Pokemon to become infatuated with each other. So I mean, obviously. But hey, now I can put a Pikachu with hard eyes in the thumbnail. Clickbait! Back to this game though, as I was playing it, I realized that there must be something more to it. I sensed some depth to its design choices. There is certainly some symbolism to be found here, beyond the Chinese myth. And man was I right. And this delve begins with this image. This statue is the Pieta by Michelangelo. It depicts Mother Mary holding Jesus after his crucifixion. Choosing this statue is fitting, as Yonder, the game's development team, is based in Rome. And upon finding that out, so much more of this game began to make sense. You see, there are some interpretations of the String of Fate myth that add on to the string not only connecting soulmates, but also people who will have a meaningful part in your life. Close friends, mentors, and family members, so to speak. So perhaps these rope bearers, this man and woman, are not exactly lovers, but representatives of the myth, and it is all up to your personal interpretation. Sure, they could be lovers. They could also just be close friends. They could even be, as the statue suggests, mother and son. Their faces are left blank, and their features are minimal, meaning that beyond they're both not children, you can't really tell their age either. And on top of being somewhat featureless, they are also never named in the game, as if the point is for you to self-insert or interpret them however you feel fits. And with the extended myth in mind, it could even be that these two have never met each other before in their life until entering this labyrinth, and yet they immediately feel a connection with one another. They complete each other. They are the yin and the yang, on total opposite ends of the rope, yet together they are one. They are well connected. Even if they don't know it yet, fate has dictated that they share a special bond. The rope is a link. It makes them allies, for it was destiny, as it is, after all, the red string of fate. Or is it? Another mythos involving a long string or rope is Ariadne's thread in Greek mythology, wherein Ariadne must travel through a labyrinthine maze. So, a rope is used to mark previously traveled paths. The maze in Red Rope is described as a labyrinth, and having this myth added into the equation makes more aspects of the game make more sense down the line. So was it the red rope of fate that attached them, or did they attach themselves of their own free will like Ariadne's thread? This vagueness only adds to the meaning, as both interpretations are opposite to one another, just as they are. It's ambivalent, as is the color choice. Red is a color of love, but also hate. It's fire, which protects, but also destroys. It's blood, which unites life and death. It's force, but it's also fragility. It keeps the man and woman tied, trapped, and locked together, but it is also their only means to escape and find freedom. In the game, you use the rope as your only weapon against the enemies. your only defense. But they can also use it against you as it snags on obstacles and traps you between an enemy and a hard place. And as you increase the rope's power and thus length, it becomes all the more deadly, but also much more difficult to control. It is a savior and a killer. The balance between the two must be met to complete this game. That is, to escape the labyrinth. And what a labyrinth it is! It consumes the whole game. Even the menus are within its boundaries. And this labyrinth is full of skeletons and ghosts, but also regular humans and rabbit people, symbols of life and symbols of death. The beings in this place are all opposites as well. And the presence of all these mysterious beings also begs the question, is this labyrinth an existential allegory? Is it a symbol of life or of death? When you first start the game, there is confusion. What do you do? Where do you go? What is going on? Like an inexperienced child, you make your way through until you learn the rules of the land through experience. And as you make your way to the center, you experience seasons and meet others who are like you, and enemies who wish to end you. And in the center of the labyrinth is a boss, and the revelation. In the end, there is an exit and a death, only to be brought back as shadows in the chamber of birth. So was the labyrinth a symbol of life and death, and now you are reborn as a shadow, a sort of enlightened afterlife? Or were you dead all along, the labyrinth being the afterlife, and now you are being reborn? The labyrinth itself is revealed to be a circle in itself as well, and the final boss is Ouroboros, a symbol of infinity, infinite loops, birth and rebirth. Even upon being allowed to exit the labyrinth, doing so merely puts you back at the beginning. In a way, the rope and labyrinth are related, yet opposites as well, like so much else. The rope guides you and allows you to escape. It also unites the man and woman. The labyrinth then divides you and disorients you and grants you no escape. The labyrinth is split into two worlds, what it calls the ordinary world being the hub world with shops and such, and it is along the outer circle, and the inner circle is the non-ordinary world, the dungeons in between. The hub world is a safe place. Though there is life and death all around, only a select but very obvious few wish to cause any harm at all. But this safety you find here comes at the cost of obeying the law. You are not free to do as you please. Society exists here, and society has rules. Trying to escape it leads you either to the dangers of a dungeon or leaves you going in circles. The first dungeons, along with the first ring of the ordinary world, are named after the 4 seasons, representing the passing of a year. It's the circle of time. The second set are within the circle of time, and it is the circle of space, and these are representative of the 4 elements, the houses of fire, earth, water, and air. And no matter how you circle it, the elements correlate to their seasons as well. The air warms in spring, the earth is dry in summer, the earth moistens in autumn, and the air is cooled in winter. And every enemy within these dungeons is related to death, ghosts, skeletons, zombies, and such, as the theme of time and death go hand in hand in this game. The clock of life is ticking on, and there is nothing you can do to stop your own inevitable demise. The third circle of dungeons is the circle of spirit. Having bested time and space, the only obstacle left is death itself. Here, the 4 dungeons are named after the 4 methods of untimely death: famine, pestilence, war, and fate itself. And these 4 are connected to the 4 elements rightly. War is connected to fire for obvious reasons. Famine is connected to water, as a scarcity of water is what leads to famine. Pestilence is attached to air, as diseases tend to be spread through it. And fate is to earth, as time flies by and the earth ages and spins along. Fate will decide whether you live or die. Within these 4 are the 4 guardians of the labyrinth. Within war, we find the Puppet Master, the invisible manipulator of both Crusader and Saracen-like marionettes. 2 opposite sides, controlled into ending the lives of each other, being manipulated by the one who is truly in power. But even then, the Puppet Master himself merely being controlled by fate. Within Pestilence, we face off against a plague doctor, one who directly is invulnerable under the coat and mask. Though a doctor, he also spreads the disease like the Black Plague from which his design emulates. Compared to the other boss fights, this one is slow, and coordination and precision are needed in much higher amounts than the other fights, much like fighting a disease. As the Doctor spreads death through the air in the form of flying skulls, you must use your rope to catch a single skull and fling it back at the Doctor after changing in color. Similar to how many vaccines use the disease they were trying to prevent as an active ingredient. You take it, invert it to its opposite, and fling it back. Within the House of Famine is the Winter Crone. In various cultures, a custom was to set fire to a doll of an old woman at the end of winter as a means to ward off the bad season that just was, and to invoke the fertile season of spring. Winter, after all, is a season of hunger, disease, cold, pain, and famine, and like a witch, this boss uses illusionary magics to trick you. Then, in the House of Fate, we face the Death Queen, Death herself. This fight surely is inspired by the chess match between Antonius Block and Death in The Seventh Seal. Only now, due to it being a video game, it is possible to win. Like chess, many see life as a game. Though it has its rules, you can use those to your advantage. After defeating the Guardians and finding the 2 celestial keys, you reach the center of the labyrinth, where the Tree of Life is located, the Axis Mundi, where the roots and branches are both visible, bridging the gap between what is above and below. A bridge between dimensions, a collection of paradoxes. Etched into the tree is Solomon's Knot, one of the oldest symbols in all of human history. It represents immortality and eternal loops. Under the tree, you can enter a dark womb and face off against the final boss in a dungeon named Nowhere or Now Here. Another paradox, a combination of opposites. Are you now here or are you nowhere? Within this place, you face off against the ruler of the labyrinth, Ouroboros, the world serpent, the antithesis of the rope. The connection of head and tail is another illusion of dualism, start and end, or life and death as a circle rather than a line. This serpent, as a dweller of the Tree of Life, is also the guardian of the forbidden fruit of knowledge, which provides the knowledge to escape the labyrinth. Yet, it is a parasite, a tapeworm within the womb of the Tree of Life, and must be destroyed. Yet still it is the Ouroboros, the ruler of the prison of senses that is the labyrinth, the embodiment of circular life and death, and the will of man versus fate. While fighting, the red rope turns from a blood red to a bright golden line, which now can fight against the serpent, as the rope is no longer a physical connection between the man and woman like an umbilical cord, but rather it is now a spiritual one. It symbolizes the strength of their bond. This, in turn, reveals another interpretation of the labyrinth itself. Its design is similar to that of an Eastern swastika, found in various Eastern religions. This has many meanings, of course, but the most important one here is, of course, infinity. We already went over the physical aspect of the game's map, and now we have a means of covering the symbolic. The ordinary world is a place of peace and oblivion. The players can stockpile shadows, save the game, and practice. The ordinary world is easy to recognize thanks to its circular, always repeating shape that runs all around the center. The non-ordinary world is oriented towards the center and doesn't repeat itself. It is there so that the players meet the true challenges of the game and find the keys to the center of the labyrinth. Red Rope is inspired by Oriental philosophies, especially Buddhism, in particular by one of their most inspiring teachings. Illumination is achieved when one transcends the concept of dualism seen as separation. Be it good or evil, life and death, time and space, body and mind, feminine and masculine, self and other. In the game, it is precisely this fusion between opposites, like the man and the woman being attached to each other by the rope, that makes it possible to overcome the deceits of reason in order to achieve awareness, the center of the labyrinth, to defeat the origin of illusion, the ruler of the labyrinth, and to finally let off all of the suffering, transience, and ignorance implied in the cycle of rebirth when you escape the labyrinth. And that is what makes this game so deep. But that's not even all of it. I approached the game's developer with my intent to cover its depth, and they gave me this huge PDF with their design notes, and my gosh, there was so much more I didn't even talk about. Every character in the game, every NPC interaction, every color choice, every enemy, they all mean something. The children that carry the keys as a symbol of progress through offspring, fast traveling through a hearse, the dancing skeletons granting you extra lives or extra deaths, the labyrinthine minotaurs. There is just so much. And the greatest part of all is that this game isn't just super deep, but it's also great co-op fun. And it can be played single player too, each stick controlling the characters. It's a bit challenging at times, yes, but fun nonetheless. Oftentimes games with this level of depth are simple in terms of gameplay mechanics. Most commonly, all you get are walking simulators with this kind of depth. So to see these developers at Yonder putting this much thought into their game, which also has an incredibly unique and fun gameplay mechanic, proves that compared to most other developers, these guys really know how to use their noggins. And I really wish this game were more well-known and successful, which is why I made this video. Most of the time, the most popular indie games are the ones with barely any effort put into them at all, or said effort was added because the developers knew it would make them the most money. But this game is purely an amazing passion project, and I would love for you to check it out. And for clarity, once again, this is not at all a sponsor, just me being a huge game design nerd, so please check it out with the link in the description, and until next time, never stop using your noggin. I am about to tell you the tale of an indie game I recently played that has the deepest design inspirations I've ever seen, especially in an indie game. So I found it because on a whim I was going through the Steam store looking at indie games I had never heard of. Of course, the vast majority of them sucked miserably, but I found one designed with two-player co-op in mind. One whose main gameplay mechanic has never been done before as far as I'm aware, and one which has a very stylish pixel art style to it. But what I found here beyond the Chinese myth, and man was I right. And this delve begins with this image. This statue is the Pieta by Michelangelo. It depicts Mother Mary holding Jesus after his crucifixion. Choosing this statue is fitting, as Yonder, the game's development team, is based in Rome, and upon finding that out, so much more of this game began to make sense. You see, there are some interpretations of the String of Fate myth that add on to the string not only connecting. What I didn't know while going into it is that this game has the deepest lore and deepest design choices of any indie game I have ever seen, and it's even deeper than many AAA games. This game was Red Rope, Don't Fall Behind. Also, hardcore spoilers, as in literally, I'm going to be spoiling absolutely everything. I do highly recommend this game, though. I'll put a link in the description. And no, this isn't sponsored in any way. This is a pure passion project because, man, this game's deep. And while it is still very popular in Japan today, it originated in China. Some games have even referenced it from time to time, even Pokemon with its Destiny Knot item. It's a red string that is called the Destiny Knot after all, and it causes Pokemon to become infatuated with each other. So I mean, obviously. But hey, now I can put a Pikachu with hard eyes in the thumbnail. Clickbait! Back to this game though, as I was playing it, I realized that there must be something more to it. I sensed some depth to its design choices. There is certainly some symbolism to be. So right away I got the immediate reference. In Chinese mythology there's a tale, the String of Red Fate, which states that when you are born, an invisible red string connects you to your soulmate, and as you both live out your lives, the string tightens and pulls you closer together, as you are destined to be together. And there is a lot of anime and manga which references this tale, so much so that many people believe that this tale originated from Japan.